Street dance is an umbrella term for several social dance styles including locking, popping, b-boying and girling, house, krumping and whacking. These styles are all independent but each have their own history and foundation that differ from one another. The key elements that make street dance what it is its groove, character, originality, intention, and social interaction. In the 1960s and 70s, Caribbean and Latino communities in the west coast of America faced oppression and saw their communities getting destroyed. Because of this, there wasn't a way for people to express themselves and stay out of trouble, so often gangs would form and crime rates would increase. This resulted in him taking the hip hop culture around the world and spreading the different cultural and social art forms with him. Communities would hold block parties with loud music where everyone would meet up and party, giving them a chance to express themselves and their culture. Hip hop music began to gain popularity at these parties, and people would dance in response to the extended breakbeat, which led to the formation of b-boying. At the same time, in the east coast of America, the same was happening politically and culturally, so people responded in the same way. However, the music on the east coast was funk and meant that people moved in a different way. Young people would go to clubs and copy the cool moves from one another. This made locking and popping emerge. At the time, these dance styles weren't well known, and only those within the communities would know about them. They were only passed around through word of mouth, battles, and on the streets. Famous DJs such as DJ Kool Herc played across various block parties and clubs in different neighborhoods, states, and countries. Due to the increased exposure and popularity of the art form, artists were being signed by record companies and wanted to release music videos with dancers who were performing the new dance styles. Programs like Soul Train were key in increasing the popularity, especially locking, as the different dance styles could be seen by a wide demographic and audience around the world. Interest also sparked through TV with MTV music videos and advertisements, using dance to sell products. Dance studios capitalised from this and began teaching street dance, but because of this, many say that the original social element was lost due to it being structured in a studio and made into routines. This was one of the first times that there was a large number of boys that wanted to participate in dance. Street dance has also been featured in a lot of films, both recently and in the past. This includes films such as Step Up, Street Dance, Battle of the Year, Stomp the Yard, Paris is Burning, and many more. Dance jams, also known as jamming, is an informal show-off during a social dance party where dancers would form a circle and take turns in showing their best tricks while the remaining dancers cheer the jammers on. In street dance, specific to the b-boying culture, they are most well known as cypher circles. It is also very common for street dancers to form dance-offs and battles from this to show off their skills and decide who was the better dancer. Official international competitions began to form, such as the UK B-Boy Championships, which was founded by DJ Hooch in 1996, Hip Hop Internation, which was founded in 2002, and Just Debut, founded in 2002. These competitions included a variety of street dance styles, including popping, hip-hop, locking, top rock, and experimental. When street dance first came about, it was performed in outside dance studios in any available space, such as streets, dance parties, block parties, parks, schoolyards, raves, nightclubs, and anywhere that the dancer could perform without getting caught. Due to a lot of the movement of these different styles, including contact with the floor, they would often have to lay down lino or cardboard on the floors, so it meant that the dance moves were easier to execute and so that there wasn't any friction or injuries. Auditions for Soul Train dancers were also known to be held in car parking lots, as well as dancers on the show recommending other street dancers they knew. Street dance can be known to have stemmed from many dance styles, one of which was clogging. This evolved in the streets and factories of northern England in the mid-19th century. People also say that influences go back as early as the 1920s to Earl Tucker's Snake Hips performance. The Nicholas brothers also incorporated capoeira and other martial art forms into their dances, and it is thought that this is where some of the early inspiration of these styles stems from. Latin dancing was also known to influence elements of the street dance style, top rock, and funk social was known to have influenced locking. The media had a large part in spreading street dance and showed a positive outlook toward it, as it meant that less people were on the streets committing crime. The media also introduced shows, films, and many more, based around street dance, and was the reason that many people decided to take classes in it. The media, however, was a platform that misunderstood some areas of street dance, as it would involve other styles at the time in the street dance umbrella when they were not. Many street dancers hold the principle to be original, express yourself, and look fresh. This showed through their outfits they would wear. In the 1970s, dancers would mainly wear Adidas stripes, mirrored glasses, personalised graffiti clothes, and Kangol hats. People largely cared about the shoes that they would wear when dancing, and the majority of the time they'd be trendy and up to date. Poppers and lockers would wear strong looks full of sharp personality and style. They'd often be dressed in colourful shirts, pegged trousers, big collars, and apple boy hats. Although this was the case on the streets, on the TV show Soul Train, due to the sponsor being a hair care manufacturer, it led to the banning of hats on the show so everyone could show off their hairstyles. Due to whacking and voguing being a main feature and originating from gay nightclubs, people wore platforms, wigs, fishnets, leather latex, and many more. B-boys and B-girls often wore shell suits and were very uniformed, often having the name of their crew on the back of their shirts. With street dance, it was very versatile and expressive. This can be seen through the dancing in the gay nightclubs and from the origins of people responding to the oppression of their communities and being destroyed. People learned in street dance not to care what others thought, as the outcome and feeling of dancing often felt better than the hate that they would get, and they learnt not to care. Audiences grew more and more, and there were large amounts of fans towards street dance when it began to catch the media's attention. The majority of influences can be traced back to African culture. Due to New York being a multicultural society, this resulted in diverse musical influences. Jamaican dub music is a large cultural influence, which arose a subgenre of reggae, which then led to producers creating instrumental versions of the music which they had discovered dancers responded to the extended isolated beats of. In 1977, the Bronx was divided into three main spheres of influence: Africa Bambaataa in the southeast, DJ Kool Herc in the west, and Grandmaster Flash in the centre. These spheres also corresponded to the influences of different gangs. It was Africa Bambaataa, leader of the Universal Zulu Nation movement, who encouraged gang members to come together at local neighbourhood block parties. Popping was a style of dance that was created in 1976 by Sam Solomon, also known as Boogaloo Sam, in California. This style requires dancers to tighten his or her muscles, creating the jerking of the body. There are many moves that make up the popping style. Some of these include the dime stop, tutting, the robot, gliding, scarecrow, and many more. Each dance move is completely different, but uses elements of popping to create a cohesive dance style. For example, the Boogaloo, created by Sam Solomon, is a fluid motion which creates the impression of not having bones and being loose, whereas other movements, such as gliding, show you are moving smoothly across the floor. This shows the wide variation within the style. House dance first originated in the underground clubs in the east coast of America, mainly Chicago and New York, by dancers who reacted to the music of Larry Levan and Frankie Knuckles in the 1970s and 80s. These DJs mixed disco music with Afro beats and electric music. The owner of a big club in Chicago called The Warehouse heard this music and began to play it there. People say that it's hard to trace house back to a specific person, as this movement style is heavily inspired on feeling the music and improvising, which was created through social party culture. Krumping is a street dance style that evolved from clown dancing, which was first made for the entertainment of children. This then developed and was given the name Krumping, which first originated in Los Angeles, California, in the South Central neighborhood. It was created in the early 2000s by Caesar Tight Eyes Willis and Joe artist Big Mojo Ratty. Krumping is made up of fast-paced, intense, sharp movements and involves isolating body parts so that one is rigid while another part is swinging, stomping, or popping. Locking is a dance style involving the improvisational move called the lock. It was created by Don Campbell and put to a specific rhythm and style in the nightclubs of Los Angeles in the early 1970s. People would meet in the nightclubs of Hollywood and would share steps and moves. Some of these include wrist rolls, pacing, Scooby-Doo, the funky guitar, and the Skeeter Rabbit. Locking was a style that became popular very quickly and was the rage of a new TV show at the time called Soul Train, where individual dancers would do locking and pointing movements. Don Campbell and his partner Demeter Freeman toured with Soul Train, and whilst doing this compromised a group of improvisational solo style locking dancers, where a dancer would come out of the group, do a solo, and then step back in line. Keeping in time with the background music was the only source of synchronization this group had. This group was known as the Campbell Lockers. During this time, certain others began to share these moves at places such as house parties, high school dances, picnics, and social events, and would perform the moves in unison. By the mid-1970s, locking had been seen by many, and a movement that was originally created in places such as Southern California was now migrating from the inner city to suburban areas, where it continued to develop. The inspiration of the art form was put into place by Don Campbell, and came from a place of struggle and the issues that were prevalent in California during this time. Don Campbell was a very established figure in the dance industry and was known to be a key pioneer in creating locking. He first created locking when messing around with his friends and forgot the next step of his dance routine. He locked his joints and froze for an instant, dramatically accentuating the dance. He then developed the move and it became a cornerstone of locking. Campbell spent many years honing his technique in discos and nightclubs, and was known to wear colourful attire that helped him stand out in the crowd. Don Campbell went on to form many dance groups during his career, one of the most famous being the Lockers, which was seen all over TV screens during the 70s. He explains locking to be a style that can vary from dancer to dancer and encourages people to add their own flair to the movements. Don Campbell's style involved interacting with the audience through stylised hand slaps, pointing, tricks with his hat, and intricate and rapid footwork. He would add windy upper body movements and acrobatics like knee drops, which was seen as effortless. In 1971, Campbell appeared on Soul Train and was described to have stole the show. He became a Soul Train regular. For the remainder of his life, he continued to dance and spread the word about locking, teaching his ways and judging competitions, speaking in engagements, and many more. This was an energetic form of dance that was created and popularized by African Americans and Latinos during the early 1970s in New York. It includes stylized footwork and athletic moves such as back and head spins. The dance incorporated moves from a variety of sources, the main ones being martial arts and gymnastics. This dance style is largely improvisational and holds a large emphasis on the energy, creativity, and risk of the dancer. Not only is b-boying meant to convey the rough world of the city streets, but it's also associated with the common style of the clothing usually worn, including baggy pants, baseball caps worn to the side or back, and trainers. B-boying can also be known as breakdancing or breaking. This name originally stemmed from the rhythm and the sounds created in the music and was a technique that was pioneered by DJ Kool Herc. The common accompaniment of the style was made up by playing breaks repeatedly and switching from one record to another. Following the creation of the hallmark moves, the dance began to appear in more mainstream culture, showing up in places such as music videos, media, and more. Breakdance had an enormous influence on modern styles and has been performed in many music videos by popular artists, some being Michael Jackson and Britney Spears. Ken Swift is known to be one of the largest influences that b-boying has known. His career began in the late 1970s as president of the Young City Boys crew from the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Following on from this, in the 1980s, he collaborated with one of his peers to create the world-renowned Rocksteady crew, who were responsible for bringing breaking to many different parts of the world through extensive tours and classic hip-hop films. In the 90s, Ken Swift co-authored, directed, choreographed and performed Off-Broadway's first hip-hop musical, Jam on the Groove. Swift is credited with establishing movements critical to the dance's foundation and has continued to promote and preserve the art form of breaking to this day. During the period in which breaking was gaining national attention, Ken's original footwork and overall style became an integral part of the style and a blueprint for choreographers teaching and dancers performing the style today. Whacking was a dance style that was formed in the 1970s in Los Angeles gay clubs, where poor Black, Latino, and Asian gay men who had to hide their sexuality in public could express and find freedom through whacking to funk music and escape society's dismissal of their sexual identity. The movement of whacking involves the dancer to create an arm movement, first originating in the shoulder, elbow, then wrist, and travels all over the head down to the side of the body. This movement was first known to have been inspired by martial arts and the use of nunchucks. Whacking is a style that first originated as punking, which was inspired by the dramatic acting in Hollywood silent films, such as the Looney Tunes cartoon. Punking was a derogatory term for gay men at the time, and dancers would use this term when dancing to reclaim their position. The original punks were Arthur, Tinker, and Andrew, who were dancers on Soul Train at the time. This movement spread to clubs, but due to the HIV and the AIDS epidemic in the 1980s, most of the original punks died or were murdered due to the ambiguity of the illness at the time. Brian Greene was known to begin to teach whacking in the early 2000s. The whack begins with your wrist relaxed, fingers facing the floor, elbow parallel with your shoulder, place at your collarbone, which is then brought up over your head to touch the back of your shoulder. Then it comes back over your head, flipping the wrist back to its initial position to twist in front of you to lay out your arms straight. Aside from the whack itself, whacking technique includes hairbrushes, posing and footwork. In all of these movements, there is a strong emphasis on musicality and the interpretation of its rhythm. Tyrone Proctor is one of the original Soul Train dancers who popularised the 1970s LA dance craze, whacking. It was in LA clubs like the Paradise Ballroom and the Gas Station where Proctor first learned whacking. Cornelius, a fellow Soul Train dancer, nicknamed Proctor the Bone due to his lanky physique. In 1975, Proctor won the American Bandstand Dance Competition with partner Sharon Hill and went on to dance in a group called the Outrageous Whack Dancers. The group's move and style influenced 1970s pop culture and went on to appear in films including Saturday Night Fever and Thank God It's Friday. As a gay black man in the 1970s, Proctor had to hide who he was in public. Archie Burnett stated that if you knew Tyro, he would never represent himself that way. Extravagant on TV, yes. In the club, yes. But out on the street, no, because you get beat down. You have to camouflage yourself in order to survive. As Tyrone got older and social attitudes about the LGBT community evolved, Proctor began to embrace his sexuality more. In the 1990s, across the US and in countries including Japan and Brazil, Proctor became a mentor and guide for young dancers. When teaching, he made sure to never hide his flamboyant side, as he wanted children to know that gay culture is very important and that the dance they were learning originated from pain and struggle. Throughout street dance as a whole, there are many individual similarities and differences between all of the styles together. In the main three that I've focused on, I believe that some of the largest similarities that they all have are that they have all formed as a response to the culture and society of the time, and they all include intricate footwork and gestures are a key feature of the styles. To add to this, they all share a direct correlation with the music. The things that set them apart are things such as where the movement is concentrated in the body, how and where they were performed, and the different ways of life and clothing styles that they promoted. Street dance has not only been a style that has allowed people to express themselves, fight social and cultural oppression, impact music and cultures, but also a style that has never stopped adapting and growing in diversity. I believe that street dance is one of the most predominant styles within dance that has been impacted most by society and caused the most social change to happen. I believe it is an art form that will continue to evolve in the future depending on music changes and what happens socially and politically, but shall always be a style that people are able to reflect back on the important history of. In current practices, the history can still be reflected on and seen implemented within. They use the blueprint and techniques of the style to ensure that the history is never lost and continues to live on.